find out where Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 will take place and who the antagonist is. And it is not what you think. We've gotten several teaser images of different locations we'll be visiting in Chapter 4, including what looks to be a prison system, sewer tunnels, and subterranean caves. But I'm here to tell you that these are just parts of where we'll be in the next Poppy Playtime, because we all know Mob wouldn't give everything away before the chapter comes out. Right? Now, given what I've learned about the Nightmare Critters and the Employee Handbook, I think I found out where each of these places will lead us to within the depths of the factory for the final climactic battle. And like Mob Entertainment said about Chapter 4, it is much darker than we thought. I'm gonna have you think back to the Employee Orientation Notebook and the side game, Project Playtime. In them, we are introduced to a place in the factory we have never been in the mainline games. The incinerator. This is where I think Chapter 4's climax will take place. Let's start with analyzing a few of the screenshots and videos on the Steam page for Chapter 4. Screenshot 1, we get a lobby-type area with security cameras and barred doors. At the top is the mysterious red, blue, yellow square symbol. This is obviously not a place visitors would come to. There's no typical Huggy and Friends artwork on the walls, no posters to cheer up employees like the other chapters. The doors are barred, resembling cages. It feels like the entrance to a prison, which seems correct given one of the next screenshots from Steam. This one shows what really does seem to be a type of prison or holding cell area, with several cells lining the walls and blood covering the floor. We also see huge piles of trash or something else towards the end of the hallway. Not to get too dark, though we are talking about human experiments on children, so these piles kinda look like huge piles of ashes of things that were burned. An interesting thing I noticed about these prison cells is that they are completely secluded from everything else. The doors aren't metal bars like the entryway. They are heavy, thick doors with huge locks on the outside, intent on keeping whatever was in there in, but they also keep things out. Maybe because they were just that dangerous? It would make sense that this is where they kept the bigger bodies immediately after their initial surgery to monitor them. The scientists did need a safe space to observe these potentially dangerous monsters. And we've already been told they keep bigger bodies in cells after their surgery in the notes of the Orientation Handbook. Bigger bodies like Bobby Bearhug, someone who we know was put in a cell after her surgery failed so they can continue experimentation to fix her and make her more valuable to the factory like Dr. Sawyer wants. I would bet we'll run into her, or at least her body, in one of these unopened cells. And I think the cells are specifically for observation of bigger bodies by Dr. Harley Sawyer before they're allowed to go higher in the factory to be put to work. And the failures? Well, the failures are incinerated. This next screenshot shows the underground sewer area with heavy dust hanging in the air. But instead of dust, given my theory of incineration, could they also be ashes? Most of these screenshots show small glimpses of things alluding to fire usage. We have the piles of ashes, the ashes floating in the air, and this one shows the pipes full of red gas going deeper into the factory. Also, the Employee Handbook talks about fire multiple times. For instance, if you check the calendar in the back, you'll see several meetings were postponed because of fires in the meeting rooms. Fire seems to be a recurring trope in the story. If you'll remember at the end of Chapter 3 during the final battle with Catnap, and in his log, we learn the red gas is extremely flammable. If there's already been a way of getting the red gas down to this level of the factory, then we know Dr. Sawyer has utilized the red gas, and given the hints of fire, perhaps he's used it for more than just its sleeping capabilities. But the piles of ash and it floating around in the new environment isn't enough on its own to prove we're going to the incinerator. But for now, take the ash and put it to the side. Let's talk Nightmare Critters. If you watched my previous video on Poppy Playtime, you'd know the Nightmare Critters don't really fit in. They're just not nice. In the Orientation Notebook, Elliot Ludwig specifically states that toys are meant for children's happiness. These guys are bullies and turds. There's no way Ludwig had a hand in creating these. And they seem so out of place at a toy factory. These couldn't have been made as products to sell, nor are they necessarily good role models for children via the cartoon. They're not mentioned in the employee orientation notebook, so we know they were never meant to be seen by the public eye. My theory is that the nightmare critters were created specifically for the lower levels as bigger bodies to be used by Dr. Sawyer. We know using the toys as employees was Harley Sawyer's plan from the start, and was why he was even brought in. This is the reason that they seem like cheap knockoffs of the smiling critters, because they are. They are Dr. Harley Sawyer's rendition of them, created in order to be put to work. It's already hinted that the incinerator isn't run by humans in the employee notebook. In its entry, it says, "We didn't have to employ as many people to work the incinerators if we could get kids doing it for free." Foreshadowing, a kid in the form of a bigger body is running the incinerator. And which one of the nightmare critters could be working the incinerator? Well, there's only one that breathes fire. Simon Smoke, the red dragon. Hear me out. Okay, let's review what we know of dragons. 1, they breathe fire. 2, they live deep within caves, and within those caves, they keep their hoard of treasure, which are usually given to them by their loyal, terrified subjects. Thinking back to the first teaser trailer for Chapter 4, heck, even the second one shows these, we see mounds and mounds of dead toys' bodies, almost exactly resembling a dragon's hoard. What's more, I think the screenshots I mentioned earlier actually hint at what will ultimately happen to these piles. They will become nothing but ash after being incinerated. In Project Playtime, we have an entire level dedicated to the incinerator. The description posted by Mob under the Project Playtime trailer introducing the incinerator reads, "Destroy a toy is the newest map coming to Project Playtime. Destroy a toy is a scorching mill where toys go to die, filled with massive machinery, molten metal, and questionable safety standards. But be cautious, there's something even more dangerous lurking within." Sorry. And I don't think we've ever actually seen the full extent of what something more dangerous means. It's not like this was the first Project Playtime trailer, so we knew we'd be fighting off bigger bodies. Perhaps this was an early hint at what more the incinerator means? Other than Project Playtime and the orientation notebook, we've heard mention of the incinerator before in Chapter 2. In the toy reject room, we see a post-it note that says to incinerate, kick me, Paul. Poor guy. And if we continue through the factory directly after the reject room, we come across Barry the cart, full of rejected toys. The fate of Barry is a little vague and mysterious. We push him down a shaft, where the track leads, to crash through some boards so we can continue on our journey. But where did poor little Barry fall to? Well, I could be going crazy. But these walls around where he fell sure are lit up in a particularly fire-like way to, I don't know, maybe hint that Barry and the rejected toys are going down to the incinerator to be set ablaze and never to be seen again. And where do we find ourselves going at the end of Chapter 3? Down. Down, down, down. So maybe we will find our precious Barry. Now, getting out of the games and into the real-world evidence on why I think Chapter 4 will end at the incinerator with Simon Smoke, with Project Playtime, the level is already made. They don't need to create it from scratch. All they have to do is add on everything else. Tons of people on Twitter, YouTube comments, and the Poppy Playtime Discord have expressed concern over how quickly it seems Chapter 4 is coming out. They announced a release date with Chapter 3, and ended up pushing it back. So, of course, fans have a good reason to worry. But if part of your chapter is already made, that's not a concern for the Mob team. So I scripted this video before the ARG came out, but I have been keeping up with it. So I'm just gonna throw in a quick little bit that supports my theory, a teensy tiny bit. Toward the end of the ARG, we hear about a theater incident where, wouldn't you know it, a fire broke out. And we learn in a recording between Leith Pierre and the higher-ups that Harley Sawyer was responsible. This theater incident turned out to be the big discovery of the ARG. And because of that, I think we can confidently say that this is foreshadowing Harley's inevitable baptism by fire. Also, the final gameplay trailer just came out because I take 10 years to make these. So we can finally mention this guy, Doughy the Dough Man. And I'm just saying, what do you do with dough, huh? You cook it. You cook it in fire. You cook it in fire. You cook dough. Fire. Okay, so to recap, I believe Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 will end at the incinerator. Riley Sawyer uses bigger bodies and toys as employees, so he uses Simon Smoke to work said incinerator. Given the hints at fire throughout the chapters, the teasers and screenshots for Chapter 4, and the mounds of toy bodies resembling a dragon lord. But what are your thoughts? If you think I am totally insane, let me know in the comments. Also, if you made it this far in the video, could you maybe give it a little thumbs up? That would be so cool, so nice. You would be so cool, so nice. Thank you. Anyway, bye.